Big open. That's your big open right there.
Is that it?
No, you're still on you, but that's all right.
Well, I keep on logging in on Recchiuti, and it just defaults to me because
there's a whole Instagram thing in the bottom corner where you got to change what account you're in and all this stuff.
Yeah, but I did that. You have to do it. I guess not. Oh well.
How you doing, man?
You get lesser people.
You get lesser people.
Oh,
you don't get the full marketing. I get the full marketing thing. I get to do whatever I want with it. You get less marketing.
Oh shoot. Okay. All right. But there's gonna be a lot of that now.
Hey, how the heck are you, man?
I'm good. We're just we've been kind of trying to keep up with online orders, which is great, and managing a small team, and everybody's happy and healthy, and we're cranking along. We actually had to order more chocolate, so that was really odd, because we had a lot of chocolate that we ordered for Easter. Right. I mean, we had like a ton of chocolate, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to get rid of this chocolate. What are we going to do with all this chocolate? And then the next thing I knew, we were able to kind of move it out, and then we had to bring more in. So it's been good. We had a lot of support from our local people and people outside the metropolitan areas throughout the nation.
Yeah, I mean, that's cool. I mean, like we've been doing this like every Friday, and so I've talked to people from all over the country, right? And in general, internet's up. I mean, it's way up. And then, but I think, I don't know, it's kind of nice to be in a business that, we're comfort, right? We're part of that whole, like, the world may be falling apart in some ways, but there's this nice little piece that I can count on, and that's that candy bar or that praline or that caramel or whatever it is, right? Right.
Yeah, I think that people just, they like that, they need that, and if we can keep them happy, that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like hopefully we're headed to the other side of this too. I mean, and I'm hoping that we're all back to normal relatively soon. Not that anybody in this conversation was ever particularly normal, but
right. Well, between the two of us, I don't know how normal it really is.
Yeah, that's kind of what I meant. I'm not talking to the people watching. Like those people are totally normal. But
I mean, two guys from Philadelphia trying to have a conversation it's like must need subtitles.
Yeah, right. Like at some point, I'm going to say John. I don't even know what John means. Hey, but I wore this hat for you today.
Oh, you did? Nice.
I did. I
wore this hat for you today.
I switch hats every week, right? And I thought I'd go with the Giants hat today.
Nice.
So technically, it belongs to my daughter. Her name's on the inside when she was on the Giants, but I couldn't find my Giants cap, so I got to wear Olive's.
Oh, so that's one size fits all, huh?
Yeah, it's the Velcro thing, right?
Yeah, I like it.
So,
okay.
So I mean, we haven't really talked recently, but like, what else is going on? I mean, other than trying to save your business and all that stuff. I mean, like, are you guys still are you still innovating? Are you still working on new stuff?
We are, but I mean, I haven't been as much because we've been just busy with a small team keeping up with orders. So right. I have ideas about things that I want to do, but we've been just kind of narrowing down our inventory as well, and then keeping up with the orders that we have. So I think once we start bringing in a few more people, it'll allow me to kind of develop some new ideas and projects. I mean, other than that, I'm making birdhouses and gardening.
Cool.
Yeah, birdhouses are fun.
I mean, are they like, do you just like leave them on random trees and dog patch, or like, what do you do? Like,
I should. They're in my backyard at this point. But
so your neighbors love you. Like at 6 o'clock in the morning when all the birds start to sing, it's like, damn it, Michael. Yeah. Like, what's up with all the birds?
We haven't had anybody check in yet, so I don't know if they like the accommodations. We'll see. We have bug motels and bee motels, and no one's in there yet.
No, do you have a bat house? Did you build it? You could build one of those bat houses for your backyard too.
You could do that, and like way to attract owls. I'd love to attract owls, but I can't figure it out yet.
That reminds me. I had a dream last night that had an owl flying around in it. Like, and I was like, it's in my neighborhood.
Really?
Yeah.
What kind of owl was it?
It was an owl. I don't know. It was a Harry Potter owl. Like.
That's good.
Okay, so we've known each other, I don't know, 10, 15 years probably, right?
Easily, yeah.
but I don't know that I've ever heard like sat down and heard like your story. Like, so I mean, you come from a hot background too, right?
It's kind of pathetic. So I mean, I could kind of give it to you if you like.
Well, give the bullet points. How's that? You don't have to like, you don't have to like, I was 8 pounds, 7 ounces. It was a Tuesday.
Right.
My mom had a difficult labor. I don't need that. But like.
Well, do you want me to give you like the bullet point I did when you asked me for a description for your class, and I said I'll make delicious chocolates or something, and you said I need something a little more specific than that.
A little more. We got another 30 minutes to fill. So don't give me like.
Oh shoot. Okay.
So I don't want more than I was born in Philadelphia. I moved to San Francisco and I own a chocolate business.
Right.
A little more than that. How's that?
Yeah, that's great. So, I grew up in Philadelphia, right outside of Philadelphia, in a town called Upper Darby, really close. If Chris Harvey's watching this, he'll know, really close to the Tower Theater, which is, and you would too.
Hey,
and,
so I'm going to look at, like you start to tell the story, I'm going to interrupt. So Brad from Cho was on last week, who I guess spent some time working with you guys too, right?
Right.
So Brad's like, Brad grew up in Philly too. So Brad grew up in Abington, and he's like, so I don't know if you know where this is. It's this little town. It's like Abington. I'm like, yeah, I get it. Yeah, we're there.
Right.
So it's like we're on this Philly run right now. So 3 people in a row are Philly people. So,
right.
So you grew up in Upper Darby.
So I grew up in Upper Darby, and my grandmother was making pastries, and she's from Northern Italy, and so she was always baking and doing pastries at her home. So in order for us to participate or lick the bowl, we had to participate and make things. So as a little boy, like from 4 up, I was always like baking things, and she was working with like really basic chocolate techniques, nothing in tempering or so on and so forth. And I think she noticed that I really had a affinity for it, and I was really into it. So I did a lot of work with her, and my brother was outside gardening, and my other sisters were, like had the album covers under their faces, and they were like trying to get a tan or something like that for the beach. So I continued kind of doing that, and then she turned me on to a friend of hers, her name was Marie. She had this little store called Marie's Chocolates, and she was also from Northern Italy, and I would head over there after school. I was like 7, 8, 9, and I'd make chocolates with her. I'd like polish molds or do whatever it is she needed to do, and then I'd like eventually learn how to temper chocolate the way she tempered chocolate, which was the seeding method. That's how she did it.
Right.
But she made it work. She wasn't using like coating chocolate. She was actually using real chocolate.
Right.
I think she was using Nestle's Gibraltar brand and all that stuff. That was what was
very
happening.
Cool.
That was like state of the art today. That was like, it's like the real deal.
Totally.
And then kind of fast forward, while I was doing that, I was always studying music. So I was a music major. So I did a lot of music, studying music and playing music. And so it was a kind of combination of playing music with my mother, who was a musician, studying, taking private lessons, and then baking as well. So what I did was, as I was like 16, 17, I started working in restaurants in Philadelphia and restaurants outside of Philadelphia and hotels, and just kind of build up my chops with different chefs and people. So I started working with like, I actually, my first real job was a place in Manoa called Overbrook Barson's. It was a Jewish deli, and I was a soda jerk. I used to like make like sundaes and things like that. And I was like 16, 17. It was really cool. I really enjoyed it. The girls were great. And then after that, I got a job at the Marriott in Philadelphia, outside of Philadelphia, and I started working at the Marriott, and I started baking with this other Italian woman at the Marriott, Philomena, and I started making all these different things with her, and just like making like brandy snaps,
right,
with cream and stuff like that, and so just all this basic stuff that I was doing, but I felt very comfortable with it, and then from there I realized that I just wanted to experience something completely different. So Coco Barry opened up a school with Jean-Marie Guichard, and a bunch of other chefs in New Jersey. And from there, I walked into the school and I said, hey, can I like work here, or can I clean dishes or scrub the floors? And
when was this? Like 1980 something?
Yeah, 70, or 80, 81, 82, 80,
Got it.
80, probably 80. And so I started working in there, and you'd have like Bellaway come in and do a sugar demo. And so I would be able to work with these people while they're getting prepared for their classes. So I learned this whole different level of what it was like to actually produce product in a professional way.
Right.
Jean-Marie Guichard, I learned, we had a small Solic enrobing system. So that's where I got turned on to, different types of enrobers, and what that meant, and versus hand dipping and all these kind of decorative techniques. So that was a really big thing for me. So I worked there for free for like 2 years, just doing whatever. I'd be like washing dishes, and the chefs would look over at me. They're like, "Oh, this kid's never gonna leave. So why don't we like bring him over and show him some things?" So they would show me how, like, sugar work or whatever, and then we would work till like really late at night, making like showpieces and stuff like that. So I learned a lot just because I was just really persistent, and I think I was very persistent because I studied music. I was studying music, and music is just kind of like you're always doing the same thing for like 4 or 5 hours. So
1E and
okay
2E and 3E and 4E and.
So I'm okay with repetition. I'm okay with doing things over and over and over again. It didn't bother me, and I think it really I think they liked it because they didn't see it as me getting bored and I wanted to learn something new. I was like, I'm going to just try to figure this out and make it better every time I do it. And really,
I mean, do you think that's? I think that might be something that's missing in a lot of chocolate these days. Like how important it really is to like do that perfectly, like 10,000 times in a row.
Right. It's
like,
like,
you know what I mean, like you just got to nail it.
10,000 hours
right?
of music.
You've got to make that praline for your customer. That, I mean, you said your Monday was really big, right? I mean, the expectation for that customer was that they don't really care how many you made. They don't really care how many you haven't made since the last time they ordered them. They want them to be the same. I mean, do you think is that what that's about? Do you think?
I don't think our customer base is pretty critical. So like if we make something and then for some reason we change a technique, or we change the percentage of chocolate, like say for example if we're making gianduja and it was like 48% unsweetened 100% cocoa Piemonte hazelnut paste, and then the rest was milk chocolate, and
right.
You temper both of them and bring them together and you cast it, and then all of a sudden I change the percentages, and they're like, oh, it tastes sweeter, it tastes different. I don't know.
But that's what I mean. Like I think our customers expect us to make it exact. I mean, I don't want to McDonald's it, right? I don't want to draw that illusion, but they're expecting craftsmanship from us, and they're expecting us to do exactly the same thing every time, and they want it to be the same piece of chocolate that they had 6 months ago, right? Exactly. No matter what, and and I think I'll be honest. I mean, part of what's hard for me about this is that I want to move on to the next recipe, right? Like I want to do this recipe, and then I want to move on to the next one, and I want to do the next thing. I mean, you heard my first question today was about innovation. Like, what are you innovating, right? Mm-hmm. As opposed to what are you making perfect today?
Right. Well, I think that one of the things that was really interesting for me to be because our production manager is currently working from home and not in the kitchen because she has to travel a lot, and I think she doesn't feel comfortable traveling in public transportation. So I've been taking over the production aspect of it with a small team. But what I've discovered is that there's amazing what they do, and I learn from them because they've evolved in their technique. But then I'm able to show them new ways or better ways or different ways to do it. Right. And I think that between the synergy between all of us has really been an amazing experience for me because, I'm not just like walking in, I'm the boss or I'm the jefe and I'm like, hey, do it this way. Why are you doing it this way? I like ask them what they're doing, how they do it. And then we either share ideas or I end up doing it their way because their way is better than my way, or the vice versa.
Right. But I mean, I'll say something nice about you. What the heck? Once. One time.
I'm gonna step out for a minute.
You want me to hit record? I can hit record. We're gonna post this later, so it'll be up for posterity. I mean, I think you're widely considered one of the finest confectioners, chocolatiers in North America, right? I mean, like when I'm somewhere that you are going to appear, like you're going to do a demo, like people are standing around. Michael's coming, right? I mean, I think for you to say that I had the opportunity to learn from my staff, I think says a lot about you. I think other people that are at the top of their game, they walk into the kitchen and want it to be their way and their way only, right? I mean, that's kind of the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you have to have obviously you have to have some sort of control and combination of both. But the way I've learned is I think I was really kind of tortured by a lot of these chefs, and I just didn't want. I just felt as though they didn't take advantage of the fact that maybe I do have an idea, but I would never be interested in expressing my idea because I was scared shitless of them. I was like, I'm not going to say anything. Yes, chef. Yes, chef. Yes, chef. That was just the way it goes. But it's like my team, I'm like, they're like, they feel comfortable now saying, hey, I think that we should try it this way. I'm like, all right, let's try it. If it works, that's great. And if it doesn't work, I'm not going to get upset. We'll just go down a different path, and that has been a kind of a wonderful innovation piece of just collaborating and working with the people that are supporting you and your employees to keep the business going, and make them feel like they're really part of it.
Yeah. All right, so you're working at Calabo. Reagan's the president. You're working at Calabo.
Right.
And you're there for a couple years.
Right.
And then what's next?
And so then I decide that I'm going to go walk across the country and for global nuclear disarmament. So I was part of a team to cook food for 5,000 people, and we walked from LA to Washington D.C. and it took about a year. That was a really tough part of my life, but I learned a lot and I made a lot of amazing friends, and I learned how to cook on the fly with some really crazy chefs. And in these movie, basically these film kitchens that are in trailers, these really gorgeous kitchens. We had 10 of them. And then we would just kind of show up in towns and get whatever food we can get and cook for these people and make desserts or whatever. And we did that. And so I did that for a year and then moved back to Philadelphia. And then I got a job at Le Bec Fin.
With George Perrier.
With George Perrier. I mean, there was actually one day where George he didn't have my shirt, and I took one of his chef's jackets that said George Perrier on it, and he comes walking in the kitchen, he looks at me, I was like, chef, I said, you don't have a jackie for me. He's like, so I had to use yours, and he just looked at me. For some reason, he liked me. He never gave me any shit. What's
funny is that my dad worked at a private club in Philadelphia for years, and George was a member at this private club. And my father became really good friends with George, right? And so I knew George, but I also knew his reputation, right, which was legendary, right?
Right.
I mean, that French A personality, perfect chef, that kind of thing. And we go to have dinner there one night, 12 of us, right? And something's clearly going wrong, right? George is
oh man,
just about throwing down with the hostesses, right? And my dad walks in, right? And he kind of looks up and kind of hello, Dave, and takes us to this table and is really nice to us and all this stuff, and then walks back and goes right back to that, beating up the hostesses again. And it was just one of those, but talk about chefs that, I mean, he liked you, but he had to be somebody that was challenging, right? I mean,
yeah,
nothing less than perfect.
Because the pastry kitchen was in the back, and he was making the sauces. We were in the basement. He was right next to us, and so all of a sudden he would just take a pot and just throw it across the room full of hot sauce at the dishwasher. All of a sudden he had a tantrum, and you're like, "What the hell is going on here?" And then I used to get mad at him. I think that's why he liked me, because I wasn't afraid of him, because I didn't really care. It's if you fire me, I just leave. It's that's fine, but you can't be a jerk all the time. Women would come down and he would interview women, and he would take his shirt off all the time. He'd be there with bare chested with a shirt, interviewing these women, and these women are this 4 foot. I felt really tall. I'm not a tall dude, but I felt like a giant around him, because he was 4'11", or still is. He's still living, I would say to him, I was like, chef, you can't do that. I said, that's really bad. And he's like, oh, and he would just get upset with me. But I don't know, for some reason, he just never, because I could work. I was like, one of me was like three of them. And then like the other thing is that what we discovered is that they stopped bringing French people in. I said, you know what, you got to stop bringing French apprentices in and pay for them to come in. I said, just because they're French doesn't mean they know how to cook. There's a lot of French people that just don't know how to cook. It's just like there's a lot of Americans that don't know how to cook. I said, and so he started bringing, and that's when he brought in Bob Bennett and all these other people.
Were you doing hot food or pastry in there?
What's that?
Were you doing hot food or pastry?
Pastry.
Okay.
So I did the whole cart, the pastry cart, and then we, did that whole thing. It was pretty wild. It was a lot of work. I mean, because you had to throw everything out, or we would donate it, and then you had to rebuild the cart every day.
Right.
So, and there was like 25 items on the cart. So it was a workout. I mean, we get in at like 4:35 in the morning and just push. And then I worked for. The same time, I got another apprenticeship with this guy, Alain Tricot, at this restaurant called Deja Vu. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It was right up the street. I was on Spruce Street.
Okay.
And he was a private chef for the Shah of Iran before he was ousted. And when he was ousted, he moved to Philadelphia because his cousin owned a restaurant in Philadelphia. It was a really small boutique restaurant, like a small version of a Le Bec Fin.
Right.
And he showed up there, and I walked in there, and they said, I'll work for you for free. And so we started working together. And he said, the one thing that I want you to do is help me build the city hall at a pastillage. And it's going to take 2 years, and we're going to do it. It's 3,000 pounds of sugar. Right. And so we used to do that in his basement all the time. Like work till like 1 a.m, working on this pastillage. He has a cigarette dangling out of his mouth. And we do all this like pulled sugar work. But he was crazy because he got to the point where, like one time I was chinoise. I was pureeing raspberries through a chinois, and I splattered it some on the wall. And he grabbed the copper pot and threw it from the line and hit me in the head. So I have 20 stitches in my head here, thanks to Alain. Sent me to the hospital, and it was crazy. But I ended up going back to work with him. So I think he just thought, and I didn't say anything. I told the doctors I fell. And, the doctors were like, well, if you could have seen Made in France from that copper pot, maybe that would have been an indicator. But I still ended up working with him. And then he would do things like come over to my house. And I always had like a 50-pound bag of sugar in my apartment. And he would come over there, and we would like sit up all night long and just do pulled sugar for like hours. So I was like totally geeked out with these these people. And that's how I learned how to do things. I just was like, I put so much energy into just finding people that had very specific skill sets. And I just like drilled down on them really hard and worked with them, and then offered my time for free. So that they would, because, I didn't have the skill that they had, and they get really frustrated with you, and they just tell you to leave or whatever.
Right.
So that was that. And then I ended up realizing that I wanted to just kind of get out of the heat and get out of Philadelphia and then move to the West Coast. Because San Francisco I was there visiting one time with my sister when I was like 19, and it was August in San Francisco, and it was like 50 degrees. I'm like, oh my God, August in Philadelphia, it's like a stepping out of a shower, and it's like 95 degrees. It's terrible. I was like, I'm moving to San Francisco. So I ended up moving to San Francisco and trying to find a job, but they don't like to hire people from the West Coast, from the East Coast. They're really not into. They look at the resume and they're like, Philadelphia, he's going to be trouble. So I eventually got a job running the pastry program for a catering company here in San Francisco called Taste Catering, which they're still around. Right. And I ran their pastry program. And in turn, what they did for me is they paid me with the times that I was working there, but they didn't want to pay me full time because it just didn't benefit them. So they let me use the kitchen to do my own work, and I did dessert catering for other companies and other people, and made wedding cake. So I did that. And the earthquake hit, the big earthquake hit, and like pretty much all the business and catering, everything kind of fell out for a while in San Francisco. So I got offered a job through Bob Bennett to work at New England Culinary Institute to teach second-year pastry program. So it's in Vermont. So I ended up going to Vermont to teach second-year pastry, and was able to convince Jackie, my wife, to come, make her way over to Vermont. She's never been to Vermont. From Hawaii to San Francisco to Vermont, I mean, that was like a big change for her. But she did it, and we did that for a year. And then after that, I did that for a year at the school, and then from there, I left the school and ended up working at a relay and chateau property called Blantyre in the Berkshires and running their pastry program for summer.
Right.
And then was approached by a chef who was headhunting for a property in Barnard, Vermont, which is outside of Woodstock, Vermont, for a really elite kind of 14-room property called Twin Farms. And it was like all this British chefs and people and really amazing property. And so I ended up getting the pastry program there, and Jackie and I moved to Vermont, and we stayed in Vermont for 5 years. But the whole time we were in Vermont, we were like, I want to develop this chocolate business. And so the general managers from that particular resort said, what do you want to do in 5 years? And I said, I'd like to move back to San Francisco and start a chocolate company. And they said, fair enough, you give us 5 years, we'll help you figure out how to get back to San Francisco, start your chocolate company, and you can start using them as amenities for the guests and so on and so forth. So that happened. 5 years later, 97, moved back to San Francisco. Pretty much had all the equipment. I bought guitars, I had enrobers, I had all sorts of gear that I had all stored, and then and packaging, everything. And then we moved back to San Francisco. We tried to find a kit. We found a kitchen, and then I started making things and selling them at the farmer's market. So I was doing the coffee table and the tent at the farmer's market for like 6 years. And and now, fast forward, we're like 24 years, almost 25 years into the business, and we're still going, which is great.
When did you write your book in there?
2006.
So 10 years in. Somewhere in there. Yeah. I mean, but those recipes in your book are pretty much right out of production, right? I mean, you kind of opened the kimono. I mean, like, here you go. I'm going to show you what we're doing. I mean, that book is still, I mean, I said before that people always sort of fawn, Michael's coming. But they're clutching onto their book, right? Because they want you to sign it when they're anticipating your arrival. They're like holding it up and I mean, but that was a big deal. There weren't a lot of books about confection and written by Americans at that point, if any. I mean, you might have been the first at that point. I mean, was that your idea, or did someone come to you?
I'm sorry?
Did you want to write the book? Did you want to write the book, or did someone come to you and ask you to write the book? No,
I wanted to write the book, and then I just didn't have enough of the, I needed to collaborate with someone. So I don't know if you're familiar with Fran Gage. Fran Gage had a pastry shop out here for years in San Francisco, Patisserie Gage. And so I approached her. I actually stalked her when I was out here visiting with my sister because I knew she had a shop here. And I remember sitting outside of her shop and trying to get inside of her shop to get into the kitchen. But she was like, who is this kid? What does he want? Get him out of here. I mean, she was really nice. But we became friends, and then I approached her. I said, and she's been writing books. And I said, would you write the book? Can we collaborate on this book together? It did really well. It got nominated for a Beard Award. It didn't win the Beard Award. It won the AICP Award for design and photography. So it out of the gates, it did fairly well, and it went through 5 pressings. So it did like 5 runs, and then now it's actually out of print. Maybe we'll resurrect it. Maybe it'd be like the Joy of Cooking someday.
The 30th anniversary. You release it on the 30th anniversary. Add a couple new recipes to the back. Change your acknowledgments a little bit.
Like the first Tartine book, I think they re-released it and they kind of changed some recipes and they changed some photography and they re-released the first book, something like that. So, I don't want it to be like live from the crypt, but or I could do like a chocolate coffin as the cover or something.
Hey, so what is your favorite thing that you make right now at Recchiuti? What's like stock item? What's the favorite thing that you're making?
For me, what's the favorite thing I'm making? I mean, I love to make, I would say I always like to make panned items, just because I was just always fascinated by them because it's like rolling a snowball down a hill and you're building concentric layers.
Right.
I started panning like almost when we started the business, but I couldn't even give away panned items. Like people wouldn't even touch it because no one got it. They're like, well, I can go to Safeway and get the, go up, put my bag under the chute there and get the the same wall. Right. So I just love the whole I love panning. I love making caramels. I really love doing the whole caramel thing.
What's your favorite thing? What's your favorite thing to eat from the catalog?
I'd say I like our Piemonte, the little bonbon. It's the Piemonte hazelnut paste and our custom blend milk chocolate that we have. We have 2 custom blends from Valrhona, and that's one of them. It's a 45% dark milk, and then we have a 64% semi-sweet. So that particular piece I love, and I love our orange peel because we actually make the orange peel.
Right.
But I mean, the amount of labor it goes into making the orange peel, it's so, other products have to offset that because it's so labor intensive to make that. So you have to have cheaper products to help narrow out, smooth out that margin that you're losing on the orange peel. But I like it. I mean, there's some good peels that you can buy industrially, but we have a specific size that fits in the box. So if I bought them industrially, we'd have to do a lot of labor and cut them down to the right size to fit into the box. Everything's
And your staff gets to drink a lot of orange juice.
I'm sorry?
Your staff gets a lot of orange juice.
Get a lot of orange juice. Yeah, we just busted out a bunch of orange juice. Yeah, orange juice and grapefruit juice because we do I say my favorite piece is can you see that? Wait, I don't know how do I.
I don't know. Yeah, okay, kind of, sort of.
I can't turn my arm that way.
There it is. Oh,
yeah,
there
this one. That one, the tarragon grapefruit. That's my favorite. That's my favorite piece of chocolate. I love that one. That's we get the tarragon from Mariquita Farms,
right?
And then we wash it and then we dry it. We cool dry it. We don't hot dry it, so we try not to lose a lot of the flavor. And then we infuse it for 24 hours, cold infusion, and then we strain it off and through an apple press to kind of pull out as much product of the flavor as possible. And that's where we use that infused cream to make our ganache. And then we top it with a piece of candied orange peel, our grapefruit peel, and then enrobe it in chocolate. And it's always been one of my faves.
Yeah, like Jess, who's one of the people watching, just says, I love that one. So she agrees with you, if that makes you feel better.
Cool. Oh,
hey, so somebody
you don't agree with me. Well, let's back up a minute.
No, I don't. I actually grapefruit. I love grapefruit. So like the grapefruit, you had me at grapefruit, but
do you like grapefruit juice?
I kinda. It's weird. Like you know me. Like if I'm not the most bitter thing in the room, what's the point? But so somebody. We're going to keep you around. We should do like 3 of us. You could be like the sidekick every week. So somebody asked a couple minutes ago, like about biggest failure. And then like, hold on, let me see. What was your biggest failure? What did you do as a result from it? And I don't know that that's just about chocolate. What did I just do there? I just flipped my camera. There we go.
That was scary.
There I did it again. Whoops. I have a melter and an induction heater. No, so I guess it doesn't necessarily have to be a chocolate question.
There's my turntable. Okay.
Wiki. It doesn't. I guess it doesn't have to necessarily be about chocolate. It can be about whatever. But biggest failure and like, what did you learn from it, and what did you do about it? I guess that's my summary of that question.
Well, I think probably my biggest failure was a combination of things. I didn't manage it well. My wife would tell you that. I mean, I was so busy with being creative. Sometimes it's like hard to really think about the business aspect, and that's where it's nice to have a strong team to help you realize your faults and your weaknesses and strengths. So I started a wedding cake business when I was working at Taste Catering, and I just it was starting to really take off, but I was just doing things that are just so bizarre and crazy that it was just like the business was starting to tank because it was just a little bit too avant-garde. And, it would have been a really big failure if I didn't jump out sooner. And that's when I moved to the East Coast to teach at Necchi. So I got out before it was a complete failure. But as far as pieces, I was really into making pâte de fruits and different flavors, and I was trying all these kind of odd exotic flavors or just different flavors. And I'd say the worst flavor in the world for me was fig and pink peppercorn. It tasted like dirt. It was disgusting. It was really, really bad. And what I've discovered is that I think a lot of people were really starting to experiment with all these wacky flavors. And when I started, I had a lot of infusions and flavors, but I kept them really subtle because it was really important for me to make sure that you taste the chocolate, because I wasn't trying to mask over the flavor of the chocolate because I'm using high quality chocolate.
Right.
So it was important for me to make sure that people understood that, like, there's chocolate there. It's not just all this flavoring. And I think that was the big thing for me, to really kind of like maintain that. And I would try these different things, like the pink peppercorn and fig, which was really bad, and it was just wasn't happening.
Got it.
But I think that pieces evolve. Pieces the ganaches evolve. Like, we're evolving ganaches now. We're evolving ganache techniques now. We're evolving infusion times. Making sure that everybody really tastes the infusion before they make it. You can't just base it off of a recipe, because every batch of tarragon you get is different. It's from a farm. So it might not be as intense as the previous batch. So you got to taste it. It's not always 50 grams or 100 grams or 30 grams. And it's different.
Yeah, I think, I've discovered, so I've been doing this thing every Friday, right? And I've been doing a demo sort of every Tuesday. And ended up touching a lot more people that way. Like a wider group of people, right? That with a lot of different skill sets. And I find that people want recipes, right? And I don't find myself to be about recipe as much about like process, right? Because you're not going to use the same ingredients that I have, because you're not going to have access to them or whatever it was. And I did a recipe a couple weeks ago with the Boron raspberry, or the Boron rhubarb, right? And I was using a strawberry gelato paste because I was trying to do this strawberry gelato thing. And this woman's like, I can't get these things. I'm in Europe, right? Like, what do I do? And it's like, use something different. You know what I mean? Like, and because that's my immediate reaction. Like, if I use something different, how much do I use? Well, you use the amount until it tastes right. Right. Like, and I don't mean to be snarky about that, right? Like, I don't mean to be like dismissive that somebody wants a recipe, but I think it is important that there's a reason there's that cup of spoons. Hold on. Like, there's a reason this cup of spoons like lives under our marble, right? I mean, it lives there because we've got to taste, and we've got to be part of the whole thing, right? We've got to be on the team there. And I think if we don't taste and we don't try, we're missing the point, right?
Yeah. No, it's very
so like somebody's
important.
asking, do you mind when the chocolate is different? I mean, I think what you're saying is you want your finished ingredients to taste the same no matter what the input is, right? Is that a good way of putting it?
Yeah. I mean, I think and I think it's also just, it's really important for my staff to understand that process versus just it's a recipe, right? Really understand, like, the essence of what we're trying to do here, and taste it. What does that taste like to you? What do you taste? And then I think that they've been really good at it, but it's been a long road,
Yeah, I mean, you've had some super talented people on your team too. I mean, the people that I've known along the way have been, from people that are more entry-level production up to your production managers. Like, you've had some rock stars in your kitchen along the way too. People that have come from really great places and have gone on to really great places too.
Right. I mean, we had Amanda for a while, 7 years, and she really rocked it out. Now she's working at Fran's, and they're lucky to have her because she's a great asset.
Well, but they're also, I think she came with you with a lot, but she was better when she left than when she started, because I think you work really hard at that, it sounds like developing people and giving them enough room to grow, right?
Yeah, and also, I definitely give them a lot of latitude, but then in addition to that, we're constantly just improvising and doing wacky stuff, like, hey, let's make paella today out in the street, or let's do, we do these, or we do art bar projects in our kitchen, and we invite these corporate team building things. So, there's a lot.
Okay, so I've got one more question that came up, which is, where can I buy your chocolate for my mom this weekend? You guys are doing...
You can get it at Recchiuti Confections, RECCHIUTI Confections.com.
Are you retail? You have how many retail stores now? You've got 2 in the Bay Area.
We have 2
3?
retail stores. Only one. We have one in Dog Patches, which is like a block away from our manufacturing facility. But that currently is just open Wednesday through Saturday for pre-order pickups. And
Okay.
then our store in the Ferry Building is currently not open, and we're trying to figure out if we can have it open in some way, shape, or form. But we haven't figured it out yet.
Okay, so
we're
she
just
says she
doing
can.
mostly online work.
Right. So she said she can drive to San Francisco so she can place an order and pick it up in Dog Patch this week or tomorrow.
She could pick it up tomorrow. Yeah, you might
Saturday.
want to check and see if you can get it. Yeah.
If there's an appointment left, you can still get it through Dog Patch on Saturday.
Right.
Cool. All right.
So,
how about this? Favorite 7-Eleven candy bar?
favorite 7-Eleven candy bar?
So you're cruising. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. You stop in for a Slurpee and a Big Bite, and you're going to grab a candy bar too. What candy bar do you grab?
Like in the U.S. or in Japan?
An American 7-Eleven.
Okay. I always like Kit Kats. They always have Kit Kats in there. I like that crunch, and they're sweet, and they're just like all you need. Yeah, they're good. So that would be a good one.
All right, just was wondering. I mean, that's mine too.
I mean, my favorite candy is Junior Mints. I could eat like when you go to the movie theater, if they have that monster box of Junior Mints, I won't share that. I'm just gonna pound that whole box. I love that. There's something about that, but I won't touch them frozen. I think eating them frozen. I want that gooiness.
My wife eats them frozen too, and I'm just like,
Ugh.
one, they're like firm, and like, what's the point of the fondant if it's like solid like a rock?
Yeah, you're just consuming like all the sugar with like this mint flavoring and this bad chocolate coating. It's wonderful. It's perfect. But I also want to just say really quickly that I've known Brian for a very long time, but I've also known the Tom Rick team. I've been working with Tom Rick since probably 1983, buying stuff from him and working with different chefs. And Brian works for an awesome company, and
I do.
He's an awesome dude, and he's really knowledgeable, and I think that we've built a really good relationship. And I didn't really know what to think of Brian when I first met him because we never really spent a lot.
Oh, it morphs out right in the middle of you like saying something nice about me. That's just so wrong. That like hurts me way down deep inside. All right. Well, anyway, y'all. Hey, you know what's funny is that most of your compliments to me, most of the time when you were complimenting, the internet went away. So it's not saved for posterity. So you're good. So all I got to hear is that you had a ton of respect for me. So that's kind of nice, I guess. But
I pushed on this button. It says like silenced. So I figured I could talk and no one would hear me.
All right. Here's the thing. We got one last question, which is your favorite band right now, and then do you want to play us out? You want to like do a little solo to out, and I'll just like hit end at some point? You want to do it that way?
We could, yeah. I could like even get my Shruti box going here. Favorite band right now is I've been listening to Maps and Atlases a lot. They're a Michigan band because they got a badass drummer and they're really interesting. They're mopey at times, but they're really cool. I really dig them. I listen to all sorts of stuff. I mean, I just dig really deep. And I'd say Yasmin Lacey, as far as she's British, female singer songwriter. She's amazing. She's incredible. It's hard to find her stuff, but you can hear it on Spotify and whatever.
Cool. Hey, Michael, before you get jamming, thanks for spending an hour with us today. I really appreciate it. And
you actually gave me almost an hour. I'm very impressed.
Well, you were like 5 minutes late because you couldn't figure out the technology piece. So,
Well, I think it's, I'm a Luddite,
You and me both, brother. You and me both. All right. Thanks, Michael. Break it down for us. Peace.
See you.
All right. Thanks, Michael. Have a great day. Great weekend.
All right. Yeah.
Be
Bye-bye.
safe.